Yeah, good.
So our first question is like, just okay, serialized and deserialized binary tree. And their given definition is like is the process of converting a data structure or object into sequence of bits so that it can be stored in a file or the memory buffer or could be transmitted across a network connection link to be reconstructed later in the scene. Now, you have to design an algorithm to serialize and deserialize the tree, and there is no restriction on how your serialization and deserialization algorithm work. You need to make sure that a binary tree can be serialized to a string, and this string can be further deserialized to tree structure. Okay, so some clarification they mentioned the format is like how lead code serializes a binary tree. You can you don't need to follow this format. So okay, yeah, this is the tree, right? So they are going like level ordered serialization, 1, 2, 3, and then for two left and right child will be null. So two nulls and then followed by 4 and 5. Here one, so I mean two nodes are only there. And constraints is like this is 0 to 10 to the 4 and node value lie between minus 1000 to plus.
Right, yeah.
More of a level order traversal kind of only, right? Just
Well, I don't know. Will it be level or traversal? I'm just thinking loud. It looks like that, right? Yeah.
I mean, wherever you find there is no left and right child, for that you put something like X to denote that this is a null position. So that whenever you deserialize, whenever you see X, you will say that any wild character that this is there is no value for this, right? I mean, something like that we have to do.
Okay. Well, okay. Just you hold on there, and on the same tree, if we just put for these ones, right? This will be null, and this also if we have null.
Yeah.
Okay. And now the way we'll go with this will be 1, and then we'll have 2, 3, and then null, null, and 4 and 5. Okay. Okay. Then that makes sense actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're
Or
saying even if you do a level or a traversal, it should work.
yeah.
But Shashank, actually, why can't we put 4 and 5 nodes also null actually?
Below that, you
Yeah,
mean to say
for
here?
level after 4 and 5, yeah.
Because actually we are done with level over here, right? So we don't need anything beyond that because they are all null. We put null here only because we had something in the same level here,
Left
right?
side.
Yeah, therefore I would say.
Okay.
If you have one more child,
but
4, then you will have.
Yeah, if we had something more here, 6, then that would make sense to put another null, right? Correct,
Yeah.
Shashank? Yeah, okay. Okay.
Okay. But we are just assuming that one. Its relation means like this based on the output.
What was that, Sergey?
So you're
So
saying
we are
that
just assuming this based on the output. We are just assuming it might be like this. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is what we are just thinking loud. Yeah.
Or any traversal should work. Need not be only level order. Like whatever fashion you follow, opposite fashion you'll have to follow for deserialization, right? Even in order, pre-order, post-order would work.
Yeah. That is true. So is yours is something like a level or traversal?
No, mine is like normal order travel. I mean, first route, that means pre-order it is.
Okay.
So
But
I have one more doubt. We can do zigzag level at right? Because based on output, we are just assuming zigzag also same nulls only will come, right? So for 4, 5, we won't have the null values, right?
So are you going in this fashion? First this, and then this,
Yeah, 1,
and then
3. Yeah. But
so,
also we can do, right?
No, that we can't, right? Because the output has to be 2, 3, no?
No. Output, no, that's what based on output we are deciding. But if we traverse in this way also, it will be same traversal only, right? The nulls will be different. The nulls will become later point.
we did not. Do we need to follow that output fashion or like it's just one of the ways to serialize it. We can do any form, right? I think what they have mentioned in clarification section something. The input output format is same as this. You don't need to necessarily follow this format. So please be creative and come up with it. So this also should work, isn't it? Zigzag.
Mm-hmm. So if we follow that, the whatever approach we decide for serialization, the same thing we should do for the deserialization. Yeah, okay.
That should be.
So if we are consistent with the same approach in both the cases, then it should work.
Yeah, exactly. Because otherwise result will mismatch, right? You follow one pre-order, other post-order, then it will.
Right. Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So here, just like, I mean, if there is no route, you are returning X, right?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, we are just following normal pre-order traversal. So how? So root dot, you are returning root dot val left and then right child. So since I'm using pre-order traversal to serialize this, the same order traversal I'll be using while deserializing it, right? So I'll check whether the first value is X. If X will denote here like null, what you are saying null. So your in pre-order traversal, what will happen? First one will be the root. So 0th element of that array data. I mean, like this data will contain all the serialized values, right? And the 0th element of it will form as a root, and 1th will form your roots left, and second will follow your roots right. I mean, this is again pre-order traversal to deserialize it.
Okay, and your serialize is the way it's on the top.
Yeah, pre-order root dot val, serial root collect and root correct.
If the root, if it is not means if it is null, you are actually making it X.
X, yeah.
Okay, but then how are you differentiating between the two values of your? So you have a root value, right? When you are returning in the serialization.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at that. So if you had a value 1, and then you are saying again serialize the root of left, it will be 2. So the values will be 1, 2, 3, right? If you follow X. But then how are you differentiating between 1 to 123 as 12 or 3, or 1 and 23 or 1, 2, 3?
This comma will be there, no?
Oh, that comma will also be there.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is a comma coming in. Okay,
Yeah,
the demarcation is there.
It can be 12 also. Yeah, it's comma will.
Yeah, because we have to explicitly push these things in C++. So I was trying to see what you are doing this here. Okay.
Some differentiator you might be putting, like 1 it is or 12.
Okay. And then you deserialize. When you are deserializing, you take the whole string. Okay, and then you look if it's X, then you return none, or else
first value will be. I mean 0th value, because at I mean 3 slots you will be taking, right? Root left and right. So first value will always be your root, followed by the next one will be your left, and after that will be your right. 0, 1, and 2.
But how is the parsing done? It's done on its own, because the parsing has to be done based on the comma, right? In this case also.
Oh, you're saying splitting, like delimiter kind of. I think that they will take care. Once you pass, give this code, no, this codec function, no, this object. Once they instantiate the object for this, they will internally do it.
No. What I'm saying is your string data. You're passing the data string, right? So you need to handle those things here, isn't it?
Yeah. Let me print the data only. So how it will recognize it is 12 or 2, something like that, right?
Yeah. So at least it should give.
Okay, this way it is doing. So 1 is the root, right? And its left child contains, again, left child is 2, and their left and right is null, X and X. What happened? It got stuck. Then 3 is the right child of it, and 3's left child is 4, XX, and I mean 3 has 2 children, right? Left and then right. So left will contain 4 will have both as null, and 5 will have both left and right child as null. and then this is for, and then followed by 2.
Okay, but how is this being extracted? Like you get this 2, now you are actually only taking 2xx, so you're removing everything 1, 3, 4, and everything, right? So how is that happening? It's not that in the code, right?
Yeah, so you are thinking that I should have parsed this string, right? And then based on bracket or comma, something like that, right?
That is what we do in C++. I
Oh,
can
I
show
think
you.
I got it, because he's doing data 0, 1, 2. So data 0 is the root, right? Like
And
that.
one is
And then
yeah,
data
one
1
is
is
left side.
the left, and then data 2 is the right. And
Okay,
then the data itself contains that triplet type thing, right?
Yeah, it should be the.
that is
This is
right.
your
That
But
is the
but then how he's incrementing that? Because those are the fixed values, no, data 0, 1. So how
no.
is he
Then again,
implementing the pointer?
once you get this as 1, then again this will be your root inside that, and this will be
Okay.
1 will be left child, and this will be second child.
Okay.
Recursively, it will
So
break
the
it into 3.
pointer will also keep going. Okay, that way. Okay.
First top level breaking, and then internal it will again
Okay.
split.
So for the top level will be 1 and then 0. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but I thought that we have to parse through that string, like as the way we parse the string manually. I mean,
Yeah,
run a for.
for C++ we have to do it at least. So you have to parse something, you create all these, and then you do deserialize. Okay, so this is good to know that you have all these things easily
Implicit.
taken care of here. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, let me at least go through the C++ code and then we'll see how different it is. Yeah, mine might not be really good way of. Okay, so this for the first one, the serialize is the same what you are doing. Okay, so whenever I see a root is null, I return null, or then I just take this left and right subtrees, and then at the end I just create a string. Okay, of this will be the root, and then I have this left, whatever I get from here, the whole string, and then again, then I actually have these delimiters as commas between each of them. So because so I don't have to put a comma after right, because this will be taken care by these left and right. So because these are the recursive ones, right? So they will keep on doing that recursively. Correct. So then you come to deserialize. So I'm taking this data input as a string. So I'll get the whole string with all these commas and nulls. So if this is the base case, if this is null, then I just have to return. Or else I actually am trying to create a list of all the strings. Okay. And then wherever I find a comma, I just separate that. So now this list of string, I could have made it integer also, but I'm just not doing it because the null is actually the string value, right? So I want to give that, preserve that. So I'm just creating a linked list of all these values. In that case, they will remove all the commas, and every node will just have the string value of all these values of the row of the nodes. And then I'm passing this to the helper function along with that list of string. Okay. So this is the helper function.
If it is null, where are you? Okay, yeah, there you are checking. Yeah,
Yeah.
got it.
So when I go to this list of string, the first thing I look for, if it is empty, just return null, or else now this is list, right? So I look for the first front of it. If it is null, then I pop it from the list. Okay, and then return null. Okay, so I do that. That is first thing. And second is whenever I don't find a null, I take whatever is the front value, convert it into value, and then create a tree node, and then remove that from my list. And so whatever is remaining, I just pass to the helper. Okay, just get the left and right subtree, and then I take this whatever this previous root, as assign its left and right subtrees over here, whatever I obtain from here, right? And then I return this root. So yeah, so this is the part I was thinking how you guys handle it, just splitting all the string with the delimiters. So, but I have to do that explicitly over here. And then I have to pull it over here, right? So I just pop it, each and every element from the string. And then what is the remaining, I just pass. Anyway, I'm using a reference over here. So it will keep on changing for all the levels. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the one I was talking about.
So explicitly you are using delimiter to segregate the values between left and right, and then
Right. So see, one thing what will happen in an interview if I do it the Python way, if the person doesn't understand Python, so then he will have these questions. Correct. So at least why I'm trying to show these things, someone if you're working on Python, you should understand that everyone won't know Python. I know most of the people know Python nowadays, but all these small details, so you
no, that's
might have to be explained well, right? Yeah.
and he might ask me also to do this way, not that way.
I
He
don't
can
think
enter.
so, but whatever is happening under the hood, if you know it, that's good.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's
Yeah.
move to the next one.
Next question. So that's like a divide of two integers. So here it's okay. Why it's not explained? Okay, so you are given dividend and divisor. You have to divide two integers without using multiplication, division, or mod. I mean, and mod operator. Return the quotient after dividing dividend by the divisor. The integer should truncate towards zero, which means losing its fractional part. Like a decimal part will be removed, and for minus two, minus this decimal part will be removed. Now assume we are dealing with with an environment that could only store the integers within a 32-bit signed integer range. This one. For this, your function returns this when the division result overflows. Okay, so this is the case like if you have dividend as this and your divisor is minus one, right? In positive side, it will hit overflow.
Right, right.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So even if we ignore these overflow for a time being, okay, we'll come to that later.
Yeah.
He is talking more about the 32-bit signed integer types, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's more of the C++ or Java side, not the Python related thing, right?
Yeah, and there is
Correct.
no issue.
Yes. So in this case, and our question, what they talk about is we don't have to use any of the multiplication, division, and mod operator. Correct.
Yeah.
So it means we can use addition, subtraction, and bitwise operations, right? Yeah, so all others are permitted. Okay. So to start with, and keeping aside the overflow, we'll come to that at the very end. So how do we handle this? You know, so first, how do we do a division without division and multiplication and mod operator?
So first, like you'll have 10 as dividend, right?
If we take this example,
Yeah, so multiplication you can't do. So this value itself, like 10 minus one time, I mean 3 plus 3. I mean plus we can use, right? Rather than doing 3 into 2, 6. This we can do 3 plus 3.
No, we can use subtraction also.
Yeah, subtraction. So I'm saying rather than one more 3. As long as you find that 3 plus 3 plus 3, this value is lesser than your this what is called dividend, you can subtract that much from your this, right? Now the moment you add one value, now your this what we'll say, this is what we call this one. This is dividend, this is divisor, and this is whatever that is, right? This
You have
value.
remainder and quotient only, right? So this is something which is the intermediate results.
Intermediate results, yeah.
Okay. Well, okay. So before even that, yeah, this is, so you are trying to show how the division works, correct?
Division, actual division, yeah.
Okay.
No, actually, so for example, till this dividend is greater than divisor, right? We can subtract 10 minus 3. How many times we subtract that we can count as the output, right?
Yeah, quotient. That will be your quotient. Like 3 3s are 9.
Yeah.
Till what extent you get positive in this one.
Yeah.
As long.
So what Srinu is saying is actually you do the brute force way, right? So you take the dividend and keep on subtracting the divisor from it And as long as the difference between both is not is greater than 0,
Rather
right?
than, yeah.
Yeah, then you keep on adding some number. So that will be your answer, correct?
Yeah.
For each and every time you subtract, you keep on counting how many times you're doing it, and then that will be your answer.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, he's also trying to explain the same way, but he's trying to draw it and show how our actually division works. And from that, he was going to derive that, right, Shashank?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the same thing what Srinivas mentioned. Yeah.
Okay. So if you, okay, so what do you want to, so now we got it, right? So the remainder is 1 and 1 is lesser than 3, so we can't go ahead. And because we don't want the fraction.
Exactly.
Okay. So whatever is our answer, which is 3, we'll return back.
Yeah. And take a float, whatever. Like to avoid this, I think I didn't use all these things. Maybe in Python it's like truncate part, right? If
Okay.
10 by So in other languages, I think you'll have to take care. You have to convert it to integer if you get something like float.
Okay.
But you won't get it here because we won't get that, right? Because every time we are adding and subtracting, so integer value only you will have, either negative or positive. But why they
Are
are
you sharing some string?
I'm just speaking. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm saying, will this case ever arise while writing the algorithm? It won't, right?
Which one?
This part 3.33 you will never get like while designing the algorithm.
No, but he's just representing that, saying that if you do it, you will have 3.33, the actual float value. Correct. Then you just truncate to the nearest integer, which will be 3. Isn't it?
Yeah, that will happen internally, right? While doing the algorithm, you'll never get in decimal the remainder or quotient or anything.
Right. No, that's correct. That's correct. He's trying to explain, right? Because it's an explanation. So he's trying to show how it is, and he didn't want to write everything. So a quick way, a brief way to how to represent. That is what is representing in his explanation.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is the integer division. So we all know about how the integer division works, right? So we just ignore anything after the decimal. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the very first way, what we discussed, like if we keep subtracting the divisor from the dividend, and then keep on adding how many times we are doing this operation, and if we return, that should be fine.
Yeah, that's
correct. And that will be O of n operations, right? Time complexity.
O of n,
yeah, if you consider n as a dividend. Yeah, because we are going to remove an element, a divisor from it, subtract the divisor from it each and every time. So that will be O of n, time complexity. And now, how do we handle that overflow? Okay. So if you are look for this minus 2 raised to 31 and 2 raised to 31 minus 1, so the way they talk, yeah, because if you see minus 2 raised to 31 has one number greater than 2 raised to 31 minus 1.
On the left.
Yeah, so that is very evident from the range also, right? So we have, we have one number lesser in the positive range than the negative range. So the best way would be convert all of the dividend and divisor into a negative value and perform the same operation what we discussed just now. Correct. And at the end, again convert the quotient which will be negative now back into positive and return, or just flip whatever your sign was.
Yeah.
Right. So if we have a dividend and divisor both positive, just make them negative. So your quotient will be negative and return. Then convert the quotient from negative to positive and return. But if they were not, okay, so whatever the way it is, whether it was negative or positive, you can convert to the complement of that sign for both of them. And then whenever you get a quotient, you just make the complement sign of that quotient and return, isn't it? So you don't have to deal with the overflow.
So do we always, I mean, whenever we get positive, we have to convert it to negative, right? With
Yeah, if you
this
have
one,
positive and negative both.
no, like if let's say 10 by 3 I have to do. So both of them I need to convert to negative, right? I
Yeah,
mean, so
yeah.
if positive, so I need to convert both of them to what do you say? Negative, to make sure that whatever result you get, that will be less than 2 raised to a 31 minus 1.
Oh yeah, sorry, my bad, because it's a division, right? Yeah. So we
Mhm.
have to convert, if it is a positive, convert to negative. If it is negative, you don't do. Just
Don't
keep it
worry.
as is. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So you convert that, both of them, and make them negative. And then when you are done at the end, the quotient will always be negative. So you convert it to positive and return.
Quotient. In this case, you are saying the quotient will be negative.
Oh, okay.
Come again,
So
like I
what is
didn't.
that? So, okay, when you are dividend is 10 and divisor is 3. So they both are
Uh,
positive, right?
so you convert them to negative, yeah.
So convert them to negative.
Mhm.
Dividend will be minus 10, divisor will be minus 3. So when you perform your operation the way we are discussing, okay. So we said like you keep on subtracting your dividend from the divisor, and then you actually count how much times you are doing that, correct?
Yeah.
So in that case also you will have to count it in a negative way instead of if you count it positive, that is still fine. But if you also instead of counting, if you incrementing, you decrement the answer
Mhm.
because you are subtracting, right? So if you decrement that, and at the end, so you will have a negative answer, right? So you actually convert it to positive and return.
Positive, yeah.
So that is what I was talking. But I think if you do it a positive also, if you just increment, I think that should also work, right? I didn't try it that way though.
Should be right.
Yeah, it looks like it should be logically should work. Yeah.
This case will only happen when both of them are positive. Otherwise, if either of them positive, negative, no problem is there in that case. As I mean, normal you can, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's self-evident, like I mean. So I'll just walk.
But still, you will have to handle your base overflows, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah,
This
that
one.
one. Yeah, that one you'll still have to handle if your dividend is equal to, yeah,
Meaning,
in and
and
divisor is
minus
equal to minus one. Yeah,
you truncate. I mean, cap your value at this maximum.
yeah, because that's going to overflow then the current range, whatever we have, and therefore you just return that, or else you don't have to worry. Okay, so let's go in whatever you.
Yeah. Same thing like what you have explained. So, I mean, if both of the values are positive, dividend and your divisor, right? So I'm taking the signers to, this is a flag, which I mean, we'll see the advantage of it here. So what will happen? So this is positive. So sign minus one and sign minus one. So when if your sign value is 0, that means what? Both of them were initially positive and so you converted both of them to negative, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now here starts the main thing. Like, so this is the main rule. Every time dividend minus divisor you do, and you should check that its value, as long as its value is less than equal to 0, then only we should enter inside the value, right?
Right.
And rather than every time doing, this is like power of 2 will store it how many times that dividend has occurred, right? So that at last we'll add it. And yeah, so initially I've taken it as minus 1 and your divisor is this. So two value. So my only doubt, why can't I take 3 values plus value also? You got my point, right? This means 3 into 2 we are doing, right?
Well, okay.
Oh,
So this is an optimized value, optimized version, what we were discussing, correct? Okay. So yeah, this is an optimized version. The previous one, what we were talking about is you just subtract dividend minus divisor, and then you increment your or decrement your quotient, whatever the way you want, and then you return. But the way you are doing is an optimized version, correct? So what
yeah.
you are trying to do is, okay, so that is clear now, right? So whatever we discussed earlier, so that's fine. We don't have to go through that. So this one is a optimized because that was O of n operations. So we need to come with a better version and slightly optimized version of this one. So instead of O of n, this will be sort of log n square. Correct.
Log n or log x square. Okay.
Yeah, because you're actually doing it the power of 2 and you are adding value on line 25. So you are incrementing your divisor in exponentials of 2, correct?
Yeah.
So therefore, that is what actually will be log n operations. Okay. And then you are
Yeah.
also increasing your power of 2 because your quotient will also increase by power of 2 and therefore that adds to another log n. So therefore it becomes log n square, something like that. Okay. So now here you are saying dividend minus divisor because we have done everything. The dividend and divisor both are now negative numbers, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
therefore, if you take a dividend minus divisor, so whatever that value, if it is less than or equal to 0, it means our dividend is still, in this
Bigger.
case, it is lesser, no, because it's negative value now. And that is what we want to do, right?
No, dividend is bigger here, right? That's why, because both of them are in minus.
Right.
So
So
if
yeah,
minus x and minus of minus y we are doing, so this minus x plus y, so result you are getting negative. So that means x was bigger, right?
that's fine,
Dividend is
but
this
that's
only.
fine.
Okay.
Okay, so now if we take an example, dividend was 10, correct?
Okay.
So so now that 10 has become minus 10, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
And divisor is become minus 3 now,
3.
correct? So now in this case, what it talks about is, so dividend, which is minus 10, is lesser than your divisor, isn't it? So
If you
therefore you
take
are
it.
entering this while loop. Okay. So
Yeah,
you
but
are
in actual
entering,
case, your dividend is greater than divisor. Then only
okay,
we can divide. Yeah, that way. Okay, got it, got it. Yeah.
yeah. But for your condition to be true, okay, so in this
Mm-hmm.
condition, which is on while line 21, so minus 10 will be is lesser than minus 3, therefore you can come in this loop, correct?
Yeah. So
Okay.
this is minus 7.
So
Yeah.
that is what, because, but yeah, we have to understand it the positive way because that's more easy to understand, all right? Yeah,
Yeah, that's why.
no problem. But only just whatever the conditions will be inverted the way we are implementing now. That is the only thing we have to be careful with,
Yeah.
correct?
Hmm.
So now then when you come here on power of 2, your power of 2 actually this value. So you have not defined it anywhere, right? The power of 2.
No, no, here only every time it will get initialized and then what
Okay.
is it?
So the power
Yeah.
of 2 is actually initialized here on line 22. So your initial value, because now we are using all negative values, therefore we are initializing it to -1 or else it has to be 1, right?
One.
Technically, yeah.
Mhm.
So and then we take this value here on line 23 and then we are assigning the divisor. So just we are going in this while loop and then we are adding means when we are adding value plus value, we are trying to compare. Okay. So if the twice of this current value, if it is lesser than your dividend. Okay.
Great.
So 3 plus 3. Yeah. So it is
Yeah.
a reverse way around, right? On line
Yeah.
24 also. So what will happen is value is 3. So your original example was 3 plus 3 is 6. If 6 is lesser than your 10,
10.
correct?
Yes.
Then you can go in this while loop.
One more
And
time, you check.
yeah.
Value
So now your value will become 6 and because
9.
therefore your power of 2 will become 2 because you have actually multiplied by 3 by 2,
Hmm.
right? So your
Yeah.
power of 2 is like you are right shifting your value 1, what was earlier, because you have multiplied it, your divisor by 2. So that
Yeah.
is what that operation is, power of 2, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then you keep doing that. So now your value in this case will be 6. So 6 plus 6, which is 12, which is actually greater than your dividend. So then you
Dividend.
move out from this loop. You exit from this loop, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
And then
my
we are,
only one concern is here I could till 9 I could have gone, right? Here only till 6 we took. And then we did 6 plus 6, 12, right? In this line number 25.
mm-hmm.
So I was thinking that value plus value plus value. 3 times I can't do. Like, is there any?
Well, okay. See, the way we are doing is power of 2, correct? So
Okay, yeah.
value plus y, value plus value. So that actually is something different. So why we are taking power of 2? We are trying to use the binary multiplications, correct? So we are shifting it by, we are doing a right shift always. That is what the value plus value is doing.
Yeah.
And we are not allowed to use multiplication, division and mod operator. So we are using addition, right? So we are adding a value to it. So that will be almost like we are doing, because we are multiplying value by 2 and we are not allowed to use multiplication. So when you are adding twice the value, okay, so you are actually incrementing your bit, right? So earlier your bit was, the representation of your divisor was 0, 1, 1, but you wanted to have 6. Correct. So what you would do is you would shift the 3 to your right. So if you actually add value plus value plus value, in this case what you are talking about 3 times,
9.
right? So that might be work for your example 1, okay, but it is not a generic one, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah. So our bitwise always it's power of 2. So we always use anything which is actually twice. And therefore we are doing this, multiplying it by 2. Okay, so this operation is almost the same, value plus value on your line 25 is multiplying it by 2. And power of 2, you are just trying to represent how your bit will go when you are using this current dividend and divisor. And that is your power of 2 or your bit, how it is moving in the quotient. So that you are actually trying to fix that first, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
here, whatever power of 2 is, that will work as your quotient. I mean, that is working only.
So you add that, and then you again, whatever you are done with your value, whatever value you have got in this while loop, you actually subtract that from your dividend. So in this case, it will be something like
4, 10 minus 6.
It will be 6, right? 10 minus 6 will be 4. Right. Yeah. And then again, you will start from your line 21, which will be your, now the dividend will be 4 and the divisor will be 3. Right? So you can still have to divide one more time because your 4 is still greater than 3. And then your power of 2, you will start from fresh, correct? So it will be 1 again. And then you will see your value and value you are assigning to divisor you are assigning to value, which will be 3. And then if you try to compare the condition on line 24, which is 3 plus 3 is 6, which is actually greater than your dividend, which is 4. So you don't go inside this while loop, right? So you're now when you come to line 27, your earlier quotient was 2 because of the previous operations. And now your power of 2 is again just 1. So therefore you add 2 plus 1, which will be 3. And then your dividend you actually subtract from value. So that will be 1, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So the value will be 3 in this case.
2, 3 things are only clue. One is handling that overflow, and second part is this power of 2, right?
Yeah. But this is a very optimized way of doing it. Correct.
Yeah.
It's not easy to come up with also, right?
Otherwise, that naive way will follow like how many times divisor can be added, which would be less than our dividend, right? And just keep on subtracting till that extent. Keep on adding the numbers till you find that the entire value is less, divisor value is less than the dividend. And once you find it's exceeding, you directly subtract it from the dividend.
Right, but why we have to do all these things? It is not very clear when we look at the code, right? So forget about implementation also. I don't know, but we'll have to do some explanation about it. Yeah, so why we want to do this? Frankly, the intuition is not so easy to come up with, right? Isn't it?
Yeah.
Now we see the implementation, so at least we do a reverse. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, go. I was saying like these parts, why, I mean, until and unless I saw the solution, it doesn't make any, it's not that straight thought, right? Why we are converting everything to negative and then in the first go, you won't get it, right? It's totally reverse of what we are thinking in the real division process. Yeah, there we are thinking dividend should be greater than divisor, but here he is taking dividend is less than divisor. Everything we are inverting, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You are saying something? Yeah. Well, yeah.
No, that is right. So one is the converting to all the values to negative. That is one thing. But second, also the way it is implemented here, so you actually add the value every time. And why we are doing, because we don't want to take multiplication. That is fine. But then when you add this value twice, and then you are using a power of 2 value, okay, so always doing at one level. And so whenever you come from that level, you add that to a quotient. And so whenever it is done, you actually move to the next level by actually subtracting whatever the value you got in the previous operation from the dividend. All these things are not so easy to come up with, I think.
Yeah,
Guys might differ. So
no, that's true.
now when I look at this, it is fine. I understood. I've seen it. I can understand. I can even implement it. But from the first go, just looking at it, I don't think so. It's a very easy problem. Yeah, it's a difficult problem. The implementation itself is difficult. So for me, I would go the very basic way first. Just take the negative value, and the first one, like you subtract a divisor from the dividend. Yeah, and then keep doing in a while loop and just get to the answer. So that is also a good way of doing it, right? So coming to this optimize is a very ambitious thing for me.
No, that's true.
Right, yeah. So yeah, if any one of you actually know about it, how things are, and what is your thoughts about it, and that will be really great.
Yeah, Praveen is here, I think. Okay, might be on mute. Yeah, anyone?
Yeah, you come up with this approach is seeing the problem is very difficult actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a difficult problem. Yeah. So the way he has implemented is the most optimum way. It's very good. But coming to this is also not an easy thing. So either you actually understand this because we can't use a multiplication, so you use addition twice, and we just go with that. That is also not a bad thing, right?
But I found this solution to be very much upvoted in the discussion thread. So I thought let's explore it.
You're saying it's upvoted? Yeah, this solution?
Yeah, highly upvoted solution is this one.
Right, because this is an implementation in the solution also, no? So therefore, actually, they talk about it well, and yeah, it's good implementation. It's very neatly done,
but a bit hard to comprehend.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that is what it is. So what we can do in this? So that's the way to implement it.
Where was it asked? No, I don't have. I won't see. Yeah, then we can switch to next, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, this is like count the prime. So you have to count the number of prime numbers less than a non-negative integer n. So if n is 10, there are 4 prime numbers less than 10, which are 2, 3, 5, and 7. So the brute force would be like you take every number and run from 1 to the half the number. If you find any factor between them, right, then it's not a prime. Otherwise, it's a prime.
Okay, so you are saying that you take any number and then you try to divide this number by whatever your number. Like if you take 10, okay, in this case, so you will have to find 2, 3, 5, 7. So 1 is not a prime number for sure. So 2 is your first prime number. So you can always start from 2 and 3 maybe, because depending on what your n will be, right? So you at least know 2 and 3 are there. So if you start from 4, so then what you do now, you know that you have 2 and 3 already as two prime numbers. And if you start from 4, you go all the way to 10, right? So you take 4 and try to look for the current prime numbers what you have, like 2 and 3, and take each one of them and divide 4 by that prime number, right? So in this case, we will do 4 divided by 2, which is a complete division. So we'll say that this is not going to be a prime number. So we ignore 4, right?
Yeah.
So then we come to 5. And in that case, we try to do the same thing. So we have now 2 and 3. And then we try to divide 5 by 2. So we say it's not a complete division. So then we go to 3. So 5 divided by 3, and that is also not a complete division. So then we say and conclude that 5 is a prime number. So we add that 5 to our 2 and 3's list. So it will be now 2, 3, 5 are prime numbers, right? Then we go to, yeah, so we'll have to keep on incrementing our input list of prime numbers, right? Output list of prime numbers. So now you have 2, 3, 5, then you go for 6. Now 6 will be a number which can be divided a complete division by either 2 or 3, right? So we ignore 6. Then 7. So 7 is not, if you try to divide it by 2, 3 and 5. So 7 won't be, so you'll add 7. So if you keep doing that till the 10, you find only 2, 3, 5 and 7 as the prime numbers. But that operation actually is almost like an n square. I won't say it's n square, but yeah, to some extent. So that will be too much of computations, correct?
Yeah,
So
every time.
then, yeah, so every time we do that, and therefore it's a brute force. But that is one way to do. Okay. So in that we can actually do some, sorry, but
rather than going till the entire number, and you should do check whether it divides only up to n by 2 number. Like let's say 10 is there, right? So before that you have found 2, 3, 5, 7, all those things, right? Now you start from 2 and go to 5 only, because if there is any divisor between 2 to 5, that means already you have number and 1 as the divisor, right? And if you get anything between 2 to 5, then it shows that it's not a prime, right?
You are saying n by 2 in the sense 10 by 2?
Yeah, 10 by 2. Till 5, 2 to 5, you just check, is there any factor which divides 10? There only you can come out and say that if you find any factor. Because see, if 10 is there, then 1 and 10 is already the factor, right? And if I get any factor between these two, that means this is not a prime.
Okay.
We don't need to check further from n plus 1.
The better choice here would be square root of n instead of n by 2.
That also. Yeah, go ahead.
I may be wrong, but I think square root of n may be better.
Right. No, you're correct. Root n, yeah. But sometimes I see n by 2, sometimes I see root n. That's why, like, I mean,
I don't think so. N by 2, yeah, it's fine. It will, but square root is much better and it's more optimized, correct? Yeah. So you're, breaking before that, because n by 2, you're still doing some more redundant things, correct?
Yeah. But square root will reduce that part.
Yeah. Okay. So that is
because
one way of doing it.
10 square will be 3, right? Almost, I think. 10 square root will be around 3 something, but half is 5. So 2 extra calls I'm making here. Here, like at 3 itself, you can decide. If there is any factor between 2 to 3, that means it's not a prime.
Yeah. So if you just go to 3, so 2 and 3, and just keep on using both these numbers, so we'll be able to identify the prime numbers till the 10, right? This is what you are saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair point, yeah. Okay, so if the other way what we can do, and it will be more optimized, is the way what you are showing on this in your implementation, right? Yeah, the SIVO variousness.
Yeah.
Okay.
So sometimes here I find they hard code the value between something like 0 to 20 in
Okay,
C
before
only.
we go that, can we actually, run through the whole thing again because I keep forgetting these things. So how is like do a walkthrough of complete implementation? This
Yeah,
one,
yeah.
okay.
Sure, sure.
So if we take 10, so what we'll have now? So we'll have whatever your sieve.
You will have first 2 as for Jabber.
Okay, so you want to
Let me-
print it, okay. So
I also
initially it will be all 10 values which will be false, false.
out 2 will be false and n minus 8 values will be true.
Okay. Uh, so
This
why
is your
is that? Because you already started that, right?
from
Okay,
we
you
are
started
starting
to
from
false. Okay,
Hmm.
so 8 are true. Okay, and then when you go from this I, in this case, you are starting from 2, which is going to be the first true,
Hmm.
right? And then you are going from a range which will start from 2 to all the way to n square, square root of n, correct? That is what your n
Root n,
stars are
yeah.
0.5, okay,
Root n.
and plus 1. So, okay.
Because last value, like I mean, in Python, if you don't write +1, it will not take 3. Then
Okay.
that's what 3 + 1 you have to do to make sure that you can take 3 also.
Okay. So now in that case, when we are actually running through that, so it will be 2, almost you are going the first 2 and
So 0, 1, and 2. 2 is true here. Yeah.
yeah. So
This
2
is true,
will be
right?
2. Yeah. So in this case, 1,
Hmm.
2. So then you are actually going to, what are you trying to do is in this case, you're trying to find if that value, what 2 multiplied by 2 will be 4. And what are the other things you're trying to do?
To up to n, you will go with a step size of 2.
Okay. So
That means
that
from
all those things you are going to make false.
false, exactly. Yeah.
So you start from 4 and then you keep on incrementing with the step size of 4,
2.
6, 8, 10, correct? So
Yeah,
2,
yeah.
2. Yeah, and then you make them false. So now if
False.
you make all these values false, so in that case our 2 will also go, right?
2 will also go here because it's starting from there only now. 2 should go. Mode open. Okay, indentation. It's it. Oh, I am writing that comment. Yeah. Yeah, this will become false. 2, 2, 2, then 4, then 6. Initially, like 2 values are false, right?
So your 2 is not getting false. So your 4, 6, right? 4, 6, 8, and okay, 10 is not there, right?
4, 6, and 8 is only getting, yeah. Okay, 2 is not getting. 0, 1, 2 will be true. Okay, yeah.
2 and 3
So
or
from 4 onwards, why will 2 get false? It should go from 2 cross 2, right? From 4 till the number n.
okay. So that is what it is. It's not from 2.
No. I cross I means 4. 4 till it will go to the last number and with a step size of 2. So 4, 6, 8, 10.
Okay.
Last it will not cover. 10 it will not cover because last value it doesn't take.
Right. So when that once that is done, then you'll go for 3, and
3, yeah.
that is your last table. So you actually go from 3. You don't mark 3 as false, but you mark 6 as false, and then you mark 9 as false.
3 3s are 9, which is less than 10. So that also is false. Yeah.
Right. So therefore, now what is remaining true are values at 2, 3, 5, and 7.
7. These are true.
Yeah.
These are the prime numbers which.
Yeah. So if you count all of these which are true, they will be number 4, and then you return that value, right? Okay.
Sometimes you will see they hard code your values 2, 3, 5, 7 up to 20 in C on itself rather than doing this.
Yeah, if for the bigger numbers, that will make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but what is the intuition for this? Okay, because all the multiples of 2 they are making false, right? Once 2 is false, that means all its multiple should be. I mean, once the 4 is false, all its difference of 2 to 2, those should be false, right? Because if they come as a factor in any other number, it will make that number as non-prime.
Well, yeah, the theorem what it talks about is whenever you take a prime number and then if you have the multiples of that number, okay, so in the form of the same number, if you keep on doubling that number, okay, or maybe multiply by 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, not 1 but 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that itself says that those factors are not going to be a prime number, right? Because we are multiplying by 2, we are multiplying by 3 and all the stuff. So that cannot be a prime factor, no, because it has 2 factors already. So that makes sense, correct? Yeah, so only the implementation of this particular theorem, the way they are doing is they are using an extra space, okay, and implementing the same thing what we think about a prime number is. So basically prime number is nothing but a number of 2 different factors, correct? So if it is of single, if it is not divisible by any number, means it has only one factor, so it is a prime number. So that is trying to do is he is trying to take any number and see if it has factors. If it is factors, he's trying to smartly actually eliminate them by marking them with values true, false, and all that stuff.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that means.
So therefore, this is a theorem, and that theorem if we implement it, so we get this in a very efficient way. Isn't it?
This is what Himanshu was mentioning, up to root, root of n.
Oh yeah, so that's the optimized way of doing it, correct.
Yeah.
And what is the time complexity of this one?
This will be O of root n, isn't it? 2 to root n they are going.
But we're still traversing the whole n array, right? Array of n.
Entire length of the number you are traversing.
Okay.
Because line number 7 will make it.
And also we are doing in this line 7, that is still like a for loop, correct? Even though you are implementing it.
Slice operation, it's a for loop.
Okay.
So what is the syntax at line number 7? I cross I colon n. I mean these three. What do these three indicate?
This indicates you are starting from 4 and you will go till the n. N means last number. N minus 1 you will go. Actually, it doesn't take the last. And how you will increase? By a step size of I. So if you are 4, then you will, and I is 2. So 2 cross 2 is 4. So 4 and then plus 2 you do 6, 8. 8 plus 2, 10. 10 you can't go because 10 is the last one, right? We don't take the last, in fact. I mean, a value less we take. So up to 9 only.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's a tighter time complexity of log of n, I think, for this one. There's a proof given on Wikipedia, but very difficult to understand.
Okay, so what did it say? The time complexity?
Log of n.
Yeah, log of n, because the first for loop actually is going only to square root of n, correct? So that will be the the log. Sorry, Shashank, yeah? What was that?
Yeah. For finding the root and the time complexity is log. I mean, log of n, whatever base you take.
Yeah, because for a particular number that what we call this n inside that log. So that for loop actually, if you run again the second for loop, which is on line 7, so that will also run for log n. So therefore, it is log or log n, correct, right?
Because this is again going at a step size of I, right? So this will be log n base I, something like that. So for every this log factor will be running. So log n base 2, something like that.
Yeah, and on a high level it will be, but yeah, the proof is really difficult. That's true. Yeah.
Something.
No, I think what you have written and what is given in Wikipedia is not same, but I don't know. Yeah, I mean what you have written is there they write log. After that again they write log, and then they write n.
Yeah, so it is log n. So log of log n, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that is what it has to be, because
So
the
I'm
outer
saying
log is purely actually for the first for loop, and then
first
inside will be whatever the number you run for. That is again done for only log n, correct? Because it's only the square root part of it you are running to.
So this
Isn't it
inner
or
log
no?
will run for log n times. I mean, this inner log n will run for every outer log n times. Like 2 for loops, you can say for every I this j will be running. So for every, so by that way, log n it should come, right? And let's see. I think let me open the link. It will make more sense now. Wikipedia. Just for a sec. So this is the product. What they are doing. Okay, where is this? Oh, this is they are root. They are going for root n times, and if I is true, then they go for only for the square root with a step size of I, right? That is what I was doing. I square plus I every time. So the algorithm produces all the primes not greater than n, includes a comma which is to start enumerating multiples of velocity. They are saying n log n. Himanshu. Prime factor is more than that, right? Log.
So there is the other one also, no? Segmented sieve and all that.
Yeah, this divide the range segment also. So what is this is the only time, right? For log and what you were saying.
Yeah. But
This
yeah,
one.
derivation is difficult. I mean, I haven't understood.
So O of n from where it is.
Okay, O of n maybe because we are running through each and every number. Okay. But then it's talking about log of n. So if you go for the first for loop, okay, that is what it is, yeah. But if you go for that inner for loop, if you look for that inner for loop, actually it runs from that whatever that I square, and then he's actually incrementing, adding I plus 2I plus 3I and all that, right? So that is all as good as he's dividing the whole series into two, isn't it? Because he is keeping at least one number at a time in between that. So only half of them is constrained. So it might be log n. So that therefore it comes to log n.
So it's like if n terms are there, so what it will be n into I square, right? Plus of I plus 2I up to dot ni, right? This is n into I square, and if you take I as common, then this one will be 1 plus 2 plus 3 up to n. This is sum of n natural numbers. So this boils down to O of n square, right? N into n square into I. This is ni square. How will it? This is n square only, right? Sum of n natural numbers. I mean,
but you will go only up to n, no?
Up to n only. So it will be n into n plus 1 by 2. So upper bound will be n square only, right?
No. If you look at the last statement, what it says, not exceeding n. So you cannot go on ni, right? In this case, what you are writing.
N minus. So where will
it won't be ni.
N minus 1?
So whatever your multiplication will be, that will be lesser than n. So therefore, the way you are doing it won't actually work it like that, right?
Yeah, I think here somewhere.
So you can go from I square to n, okay? So I square to n, but if you look at it, the values what you are taking, they are only half the values you are taking. So it will be n by 2, right? Isn't it?
But that again, that 2 will go into constant, right? You want, isn't it? I mean, that 2 won't. Right. I don't know, some
The
approximation.
only thing what I was trying to say is the way you were getting that n square, that doesn't make sense because it's not the way it is, right?
To get, yeah.
Yeah. Because you only have n, you're running in a linear fashion, and then you're coming n square, that first all what itself contradicts. And second, when you are actually going from any number all the way to n, at least you are skipping alternate. You are skipping more than alternate, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's growing exponential, I plus 2i, 2i plus 3i plus 4i, right? So you are actually again reducing a lot. So log n makes sense more there. So log of log n, that at least on a high level it makes sense. Okay, but the factor what n comes in, because you are looking for each and every number, so you are assuming it's going to be n. So that might be a way to think about it. Yeah, but yeah, it's not so easy to follow. Maybe if we do it that way, then we can always say this is a proven way of whatever this sieve theorem is, and this is what the time complexity I know from it. That's all.
Yeah, true.
But looking at the problem is very easy as per the LeetCode. So I don't think so we have to go through all these. Maybe even if we know, we can just tell, that's fine.
Yeah.
That is what my take is on it. Yeah, but
No,
we can differ on it. Yeah. Yeah, but this is a very interesting one, and you will keep getting this prime as well as the count of primes as well as the divided by two integers. These are all, I think, the serial as deserial as also, right? These are all the very three common problems which are being asked many times.
Most of the time.
Yeah, and if we have not done it, we need to do all of this very well. Get to, I think there are many implementations of divide two integers. There are about 4 to 5 approaches already in the solution. So each and every solution has its own way of doing it. And I would highly encourage everyone to do this.
Yeah,
right? Implement on your own, then only you will understand. Because even if we discuss, that's fine to understand, but to actually face the interview, if you get this question, you need to first implement on your own. Then you will really understand how to approach this in a very